being just this moment. Being just this moment is the essence, the whole of this life that we are. Despite that we can't do it, we find ways to refuse and resist this that we are. We even turn such things as Buddha nature, hearing a phrase like that, into a thing. So, yesterday we explored the fifth ancestors saying, no Buddha nature. Having, being, no Buddha nature. And I brought up during that talk this phrase, this verse that is used in morning service at the Zendo where I practiced. This is a Pali phrase. If you excuse my poor Pali. Atta Dipa, you are the light itself. Viharata. Atta Sarana, Nana Sarana, Dhamma Dipa, Dhamma Sarana. You are the light itself. You are the refuge itself. Don't doubt. You are the light of the Dharma. You are the refuge of the Dharma. Light, refuge, light. Of course, being the light is being what's uncatchable. Uncatchable even with words is light. Particles is light. Waves, scientists explore and clarify all the myriad ways light manifests. What we can see, what we can't see, all the different waves, the waves of light. As soon as we see it, try to grab the light that you see right now. We have all sorts of scientific facts. 186,000 miles per second, we say that's the speed of it. Penetrating in all directions, all sorts of waves, those we can see, those we can't see, those we can so-called hear by calling them sound waves, those we can hear by using devices to pick up so-called radio waves like this. You are this ongoing, impermanent, non-stoppable wave. You are this no wave, no Dharma. We just call it such. Us, who, what we are. Buddhas have no Buddha nature, the fifth ancestor said. No Buddha nature. Having no Buddha nature, we can manifest this Buddha nature that we are. What is this Buddha nature? So we continue this dialogue, so to speak, with the fifth ancestor, the sixth ancestor. The sixth ancestor, for those who weren't here yesterday, I should say, the sixth ancestor in China is in Chinese, excuse my poor Chinese, his name is Wei Ning. He was master in Mount Zhaozi. In Sino-Japanese, it's pronounced Sokezan Daikan. So yesterday's dialogue was with his teacher, who, when he came to him, told him, when he said, "I want to become a Buddha," his teacher says, a person has no Buddha nature. How can you become Buddha? A person where you're from has no Buddha nature. How can you become a Buddha? But this no Buddha nature is the fundamental principle. To say beings have Buddha nature is this: beings have no nature, no Buddha nature. That's the fundamental principle. Have no Buddha nature. That's the exact way we manifest this that we are, this light that we are, this Dharma that our life is. So, the sixth ancestor, speaking to his disciple, says, impermanence is Buddha nature. Permanence is mind that discriminates good, bad, discriminates all sorts of dharmas. Then we miss this being just this moment when we hold to this discriminating. Impermanent itself practices the Dharma, expounds the Dharma, verifies impermanence. So, doing so, we can awaken. Doing so, we can manifest this impermanence as our own very body. This is the impermanence manifesting our life as impermanence, our life preaching the Dharma. And it manifests, as he says in the text, it manifests a long Buddha body, it manifests a short Buddha body, it manifests a long Dharma body, it manifests a short Dharma body. Just as life manifests in myriad forms according to circumstances, according to conditions, so too this impermanence that we are manifests those who are so-called sages, so-called clarify the Dharma, and so-called ordinary who don't see. Nevertheless, it's all this impermanence, In clarifying further this practice, the sixth ancestor says, one practice samadhi is the constant practice of straightforward mind, straightforward functioning, if we say, in all circumstances. This is exactly being just this moment, though it doesn't hinder it being caught up in all sorts of dreams, blinds us from this. In all circumstances is this one practice samadhi, standing, sitting, walking, talking. This is how and where the Dharma is realized. This is how and where the refuge of our life is to be. Walking is the Dharma body of impermanence, walking. Sitting is the Dharma body of impermanence, sitting. The sixth ancestor continues, do not hypocritically speak of straightforwardness of the Dharma. If you talk about one practice samadhi, but do not practice straightforward mind, you are not a disciple of the Buddha. Only practicing straightforward mind without clinging to anything is this one practice samadhi. How to not cling? That's our opportunity of noticing caught in self-centered dream and holding to self-centered thoughts. Nothing to do but be exactly this light manifesting as our body, as our life. This body isn't so-called inside here and not out there. Don't have such dreams. Don't think it's something that you personally have. The deluded person, the sixth ancestor says, or when we are deluded, we attach to characteristics. That's the caught that we get to notice. Characteristics of things, characteristics of so-called others, characteristics of so-called self, even characteristics of stories of one practice samadhi. Then we think if we sit still, upright, we've become something. This is really, the sixth ancestor says, insentiency. That's an obstruction to being who we are when we hold. That's why Buddha nature is no Buddha nature. That's why we clarify it. The way, the sixth ancestor says, should flow freely. How could it be obstructed? How could it be obstructed? And yet we can miss it. It does flow freely, and yet we obstruct ourselves. We obstruct our life. The only one who can obstruct us is ourselves. Caught, clinging, holding, using that to agree, disagree. he says, if mind does not abide in things the way the Dharma flows freely, if mind abides, holds, sticks, then in a sense we stick to things and we become bound by our sticking likes and dislikes. The perfect way knows no difficulty, says the third answer. Only refuses to hold to likes, dislikes, much less react to so-called likes, dislikes. This is the simplicity of our life practice, and at the same time, it's the place where we almost think naturally it's appropriate to cling, hold, believe, pick and choose, attach to what we think about self, about others. If you're blinded by what we like, what we don't like, if we react out of that, sometimes we don't even discover that we're holding to it until we react. Whether we react to what others say they like and dislike and want and don't want, or react to what appears right in front of us. Not me. No. You're very good. Not you. You're wonderful. Holding, fine to say you're good, fine to say no, but if you hold to it and believe it, and we discover that we hold to it and believe it, right there is our practice opportunity. And all we need to do is be right there. Be this moment. And to further clarify this, the sixth ancestor says there's several fundamental practice efforts to notice, I'll say, when and how we refuse to be. Good friends in the Dharma, he says, from ancient times to the present, all have established Wunyan, no thought or non-thought, as the cardinal principle. No form, non-form as the essence, non-abiding as the basis. That's this impermanence, except if we fail to notice where we abide, where abiding blinds us. No form, non-form actually is better translation, is to be free from form while in the midst of form. To be, of course, that's very much our life. In the midst of form, we are the light. But if we attempt to solidify the light, say it's this, it's that, it's not that, then light is long gone, we've missed it. Even though our very saying this and that and not that and not this is nothing but that functioning, and yet we blind ourselves to it. Non-thought is not to think in regard to thoughts, not to react out of thoughts which arise. They're just another functioning of this light that is who you, I are. We are all this light. Just on a simple scientific level, you know, much of the so-called thoughts, feelings are nothing but light transmissions within our body. whether it's so-called nerves, whether it's so-called other aspects of our functioning. Synapses in our brain, nerves in our body, muscles responding. Yet we think we're somewhere in this skin bag, bones bag that we call ourself. This is nothing but manifesting the Dharma light that is who and what we are and what the fundamental teaching of the Buddha is. It's only attachment that we build on to hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting. The because of, the therefore, therein, thereby, that we add on to this moment, this moment, this moment. That's exactly why the Buddha, in his instructions to Bahiya, speaks of being just seeing, when hearing, just hearing. That's being just this moment. When cognizing, just cognizing. That's the end of dukkha, suffering. Or to say it the other way, when there is therein, therefore, thereby, what we can call self-centered, building on thoughts and dreams that we believe and that cause us to cut off the life that we are, then we're attempting to abide in the non-abiding. Non-abiding is our very nature, which is what this is said. Impermanence, impermanence. That's exactly this Buddha nature. When we attempt to make impermanent permanent, we get discrimination. We get the consequences of so-called suffering, harming, and so forth. The sixth ancestor even clarifies further. Thoughts follow each other without abiding. They follow each other without interpreting, and yet without interrupting, excuse me. This Dharma body is nothing other than, and yet it is not, this body, and yet it is. And so much of how we live our life is built on where we want to abide and where we don't want to abide. He says, if a single, as thoughts follow each other, they do not abide in things. If a single moment of thought abides, that's caught holding. That's what's important to notice, because if we hold and play with that, he says that is what is meant as bondage. That's, if we can allow that to follow, which is what being this moment, being bodily, including cognizing, including thoughts, feelings arising, it's the caughtness that we have to attend to. Non-abiding, he says, is the principle. It's not that there's any problem with forms, it's just if we hold and cling to them, only by being caught do we miss who we are. That's exactly this art of the Four Noble Truths, where the Buddha points out that it's attachment which causes dukkha, attachment, which results in suffering and harm. It's the attachment to what I said because of, and what I said, therefore I should, he should, she should, we should, it should. That's what perpetuates dukkha, and it's up to us. Despite the fact that we're never anything but this impermanence Buddha nature. We are never anything but it. That's why when the teacher who put this sutra book together and who brought up this Pali phrase, Soen Roshi, emphasized this. This was the first thing in morning service to remind us. Now, saying it isn't it. Being it isn't. Noticing where we are doubting, whether it's so-called doubting our own or so-called doubting who others are. We only encounter the light of others, the light of the Dharma in everyone we meet. That's why we can take refuge in the Dharma, because that's exactly who we are. Impermanence is Buddha nature. And we all know that our life is impermanent, though we sometimes have lots of problems with it. We believe it should or shouldn't be impermanent in the ways that we want it. But it's impermanence that practices. It's impermanence that verifies impermanence. That's our, call it Buddha nature, in whatever form it is. As Sixth Ancestor says, a long Dharma body is a long Dharma Buddha nature. A short Dharma body is a short Dharma, short Buddha nature. It's the so-called being impermanent that we are. Whether permanent so-called awakened person or permanent so-called common person. But permanent is impermanent, is ongoing changing, is no Buddha nature. Buddha nature is no Buddha nature. Therefore, we can be Buddha nature. Therefore, we can say the Dharma is the light that we are, despite the fact that I don't acknowledge, realize, despite the fact that others don't acknowledge, realize that is who we are. And yet, Dharma, the practice, is our opportunity to be exactly who we are, be exactly this impermanence manifested right here, right now, right here, right now. Nothing else, nothing else, and therefore enabling us to cease suffering, to cease harming, because from the beginning that's who we are. And it's not only so-called us humans. Dogen comments, grasses, trees, thickets, and grove are impermanent itself, Buddha nature. Are Buddha nature itself. Body, mind of human beings are impermanent, Buddha nature. Lands, mountains, rivers are this impermanent Buddha nature. Because they are Buddha nature, because we are Buddha nature, we can manifest this. Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Let's say complete perfect enlightenment. That's the easiest way to translate that. That's Buddha nature, impermanent. Great parinirvana, impermanent Buddha nature. Only those of us who become caught in all sorts of small views, all sorts of self-centeredness, we miss this Buddha nature. We don't become otherwise, and yet we miss what we are. And unfortunately, as we all know, missing what we are, believing otherwise, is exactly what results in dukkha, whether we call it suffering, whether we call it dissatisfaction, whether we call it stress, whether we call it harming, and all the various other ways that we humans make trouble for ourselves. Make trouble where there is no trouble. From the beginning, we are nothing but this. We are nothing but this light, says the Pali text. Nothing but that. You are the light of the Dharma. You are the refuge of the Dharma. You have the ability to take refuge in the Dharma in order to remind yourself and hopefully even support others. Do not doubt. Support others in knowing who they are. Not because they become anything else or because they say certain things, because from the beginning, you're only meeting Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in many realms, in many forms. Some forms you so-called think, oh, those are good ones. They are, but those others, those are bad ones. They're not. If we believe likes, dislikes, who is and who isn't, then we blind ourselves. Not only do we blind ourselves to who we meet, but we blind ourselves to ourselves. That's the opportunity to hear, appreciate this Dharma that we are, this non-thought, this non-form that manifests in form, this non-thought that manifests in thought, this non-abiding that manifests right here, right now. Thank you.